Welcome to Dungeons and Gamers, a real play monthly podcast. A little bit different, again, for this episode, where we're going to be exploring kind of the other side of what happened during our last main episode. I'm Katie Quixotic. I am the storyteller and game master. I try to master it anyway, and we're just doing a little bit of a one-on-one thing today.
Yes, and I'm Darian, and I play the high elf rogue Belladonna, and I'm along for this adventure.
Yeah. So, in our last main Dungeons and Gamers episode, the party is on their way to the Moonshae Isles, and they have just left the last port. I say just, in the last day and a half or so. They took off from the last port on the kind of final stretch before reaching their destination, and they were waylaid when some beings from the sea got in the way a little bit. So, there's going to be a bit of a split thing going on right now. What happens today is going on congruently with that episode for in most of it, I should say. I don't remember exactly how much time we spent where it splits, but there's a big celebration going on the ship. Well, not really a celebration. They're just there's music going on. People are having a good time. You know, the weather's nice. You're out on the open sea. There's very much that sort of like salt spray in the air feeling of freedom that's aboard a ship like this. And you're below decks, Bella. You can hear the music playing. You're pretty sure that Cookie has joined in because you can hear her particular brand of addition to the musical ensemble going on. And it's not chaos above decks, but it's definitely very loud. A lot of people moving around. There's some singing going on, things like that. And it takes a little bit for you to realize that there is some other sound going on that doesn't quite match up with the music that's like above decks, until you realize that there's just this really soft, beautiful, sort of like humming almost, that feels like instead of coming from above, it's coming from the side, like from the water outside the ship. And it's really intriguing to you. You have this like curiosity that kind of like naturally wells itself up inside of you. Whether she would be naturally curious to go see what's going on or not is almost like artificially like enhanced, if nothing else.
All right. Well, so I can tell it's coming from the water?
Yeah, you know, being on a ship this size when you're below decks, you're not like fully submerged down there, but the water level comes up maybe like waist-ish high. And this is coming, it's like if you were to press your ear against the side of the ship, you would like hear it more clearly almost.
Okay. Are there any this might be weird. I don't know how ships work necessarily. So
That's
are there
fair.
like any windows or anything to the outside?
Some ships do have like portholes and like captain's quarters windows and stuff, but this one does not seem to have that.
How complex is like the outside of the ship? Like would it be possible for me to climb around the outside of the ship?
Oh
While I
yeah,
was on the-
there's like nets that are like fastened to the side where they're just kind of like stored there. There's a banister. What is the railing? There's a railing. There's a word for that that I can't think of at the moment. But there's like a railing around the side of the ship. It's there would be parts of it that would be harder, but there's also like a bit of like decor where there's some like raised wood and stuff. And with someone of your skill, you could definitely like peek over easily and have something to hold on to, and you could probably even kind of like get on the other side and like lean down and get a good look at. It's not a huge ship, it's a brigantine, I believe, so, you know.
Okay, so if I were to like go on top and then decide, let me pitch myself over the side of this ship, somebody would probably notice.
They would notice. Whether they'd stop you from like crawling around on the side. Y'all have had pretty free reign of the place. They haven't really like, you can go anywhere but here or anything like that. They've been pretty welcoming and inviting. There's To that point, there's also not the only place you haven't really explored too much is like the captain's quarters, which is
Sure.
like above deck, but it's also not been put off limits. So it's a ship where it can be run pretty well with about 20 people, and they've got a few more than that on board, but it's not it's like mid-size. So it's pretty open, They have things like cordoned off with like curtains and stuff like that with sleeping areas and hammocks, but they've just been kind of giving you the run of the place basically.
What is Elio up to? Are they hanging out with me below deck? Are they
They had been kind of like shadowing you in many ways, just kind of happily being around unless you wanted to go do something by yourself. So they're depending upon what I think, if I remember correctly, the last thing you had done is you had a conversation with them about Lilia saying
Mhm.
she had some information and you'd written a letter basically. So they are kind of just like relaxing like nearby in your presence. They're not like hovery shadowy, they're more just like available to you, and when you ask them to come do something with you, they have been.
Okay. Then, as I'm initially making the realization that the sound is coming from the outside of the ship and I'm starting to like mentally figure out how I'm going to investigate it, I'm also going to look at Elio and say, "Do you hear that?"
I hear a lot of things. What specifically?
So there's the sound of everybody on all the joy, all the ruckus, everybody being loud and lively, and the sounds of the open sea, but then there's more
I make a roll for them. I think I hear some birds.
birds in the sea. How far
No,
out are we?
like, I don't know. Maybe they're not birds. I do hear something. You wouldn't describe what you're hearing as birds.
Okay. No, that's not quite right. I'm gonna go investigate. Have you eaten yet?
It's been a while.
You should go feed yourself and maybe check in with the rest of the group.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. So then I'm gonna go ahead and also go above the deck, and I'm gonna try. I'm not gonna make a huge. No, I'm totally gonna try to hide from people because I'm not sure what's going on. But the fact that Elio didn't really catch my vibe, I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't talk to other people about this. I'm just gonna go figure it out on my own.
Okay.
So I guess I would like to, yeah, just try to get about on the main level of the ship and, peer over toward the water and see if I can spot anything that looks amiss.
Of course. Sure. So you go above decks and you do see the general sort of like jovial chaos of the music and the call and response of like a sea song. You notice, which is even with your passive perception, you notice that Morthos is sitting in a chair, like kind of like near the entrance to below decks. and is just like looking unpleased. They're displeased by something and they look a little distracted. Which side do you go to? Port to starboard.
I'm gonna go starboard.
Okay. That's a good choice because I believe that's what I narrated you doing. So
Sweet. That sounds like me.
Mhm. So if you would like to make like a stealth roll just to see how like clandestine you can be, it's not going to be difficult. People are not really paying attention to like they're very distracted right now.
Right.
Okay.
I rolled an 11 for my stealth roll.
You make your way upstairs, like with a cursory glance, it doesn't seem like it seems to be paying like too much attention to you. You can hear the voices of some of your other companions discussing something. You make your way over to the starboard railing, kind of peek over into the water. And within seconds, you see the face of a being which would definitely be described in common parlance as like a mermaid of some kind. There's this very, very fair skinned, quite beautiful, femme looking individual. They have long, flowing blondish hair. They have scales of a bright blue coming up their body and long, long, very like intricate fins. You'd probably would in real life describe the like fishy portion of them to kind of be like a beta, like a blue beta, like long flowy fins, really pretty. And almost effortlessly, they reach up with one hand and are able to pull themselves out of the water and kind of like claw up. And they don't look angry or upset. You feel almost even a little transfixed at this, kind of like taking in this odd happenstance. And you can hear the voices of some of your like your friends, like identifiable voices, kind of almost even being raised coming from the right side of you as you're like looking down the water and seeing this being come up, and they just pull themselves up to like where their head is level to yours, and you hear them say into your ear, "Come home, lost child. You belong to the sea. You're free from the lies of the sky children's dream. Live again with joy and be free." And I'd like you to make a wisdom save for me.
I rolled an 11 on my wisdom save. Is it a charm?
It is a charm. Go ahead and roll again.
Yeah, advantages on saves against being charmed. So I'm
Yeah,
being charmed?
definitely being charmed. Definitely being charmed.
Ooh, well, the 11 is higher.
Yeah.
So the other was a 2. That's probably not going to do it. A critical fail.
I love
as
it when
they
the
say.
dice help me tell the story.
Yeah. They're like, actually, this could be complex. What if she makes it?
Yeah.
Wait.
So you hear these words.
Yeah, that sounds like some beautiful poetry to me.
Yeah. And it almost feels like there's something to it that feels like home. Like there's a truth to it that really speaks to you. What would you say for Bella is a sensory memory that's very specific to home? Like the smell of fresh baked bread in the morning, or a candle burning at night in the spring, or something, or like the taste of something that just really strongly reminds her of home.
Yeah, well, in the before times,
Mhm.
they had really open windows in her home, so a lot of times in the mornings, her mom would come in the room and open the curtains to her windows, and she'd feel the morning air every morning.
Mm.
So just, yeah, the morning breeze
Morning breeze.
definitely
Yeah.
feels like home.
Yeah, and there's just something about the wind today that it gives you that feeling of being woken up like you're at home. Like this was how it was always supposed to be, and all the memories that you have are not real. And you just are overwhelmed with the urge to dive into the water and go home.
Well, time for me to go home, I guess. I'm gonna
Time for you to
dive
go.
right in the water.
Yeah, and you can feel like this warm like tingling sensation kind of wash over you, and you can see as your form shifts and your hair is let loose, your armor kind of like almost like melts itself into these like scales that cover your body, starting around your neck and flowing down. You can feel your feet turn into fins, and it all feels so natural. Like it was always supposed to be this way. Like this is the truth. And everything up until now has been a lie. And you.
Cool. So I'm a mermaid now?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. And then there's this feeling, that was all very like tingly and warm and fun, like ASMR, or like somebody kind of like giving you like a gentle scratch on the arm that gives you like good goosebumps or something. And then there's a little bit of a pressure, like almost in your mind. It feels like you're being squeezed into too small a space, markedly less pleasant than the feeling that you had before. And it passes, the like pressure feeling passes. But you definitely have this kind of like sense of being a little like crowded almost, but it's not overwhelming. It's kind of like in the back of your head. That makes sense.
Yes. That's kind of funny. Describes my feeling when I take anxiety medication.
Hey, yeah, you know what? That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
So the next few, there's a little bit of like a blur to the time that kind of seems to pass. You feel like you swim for a long time, you dive in, you gain this new form. You feel very at home. You're surrounded. It turns out this creature is not the only one there. There are several others. There's one that has like a grayish green kind of smoky skin and these intricate scales. There's another one that's bright orange with these blue like rings around them. There's one that's orange and various like warm beige tones. It looks like a lionfish. They have these big like spiky fins that look really cool. And they all seem to kind of there's not a whole lot of conversation, but they're all very pleased at your presence, kind of swirl around you. The central figure, she tells you that you're going home, and she's so excited to bring you home, and everyone's going to be so happy. But there is a bit of like almost like time loss, it feels like, and you just have this sense that you're swimming for a long time. And then it's less like waking up and more like everything coming into focus. Elves don't even sleep in the first place. Like if you were to do your trance and you were to really kind of like do a clear your mind, sit and just like be in the quiet and then come into focus, it's kind of more like that.
Sure.
And you find yourself in this beautiful place. I've put you on the map there in Roll20.
Oh, wow.
And there, you almost feel like you're nestled into a cloud. You can see all these little sparkly, twinkly lights around you. They're floating in the air, and you do notice that like you're submerged in a liquid. Liquid is an interesting way to maybe describe it. It's certainly, there is like a viscous surface that you're in that's very pleasant. Like if you were to be in like a milk bath that had a little bit more substance to it than just water. It just feels very like calming and like that good feeling of moisturizer after you've washed your face, but all but over your whole body.
Wow.
And there is air in here, which you can breathe just fine. You can see like little sprite looking beings and stuff kind of flitting around. You can smell a very floral scent in the air. Just not exactly what you would expect after feeling like you've been underwater for a long, long time. And you notice as you're kind of like coming into focus that the parts of you that are out of this substance look like your normal human self, but the parts that are below it look more like the mermaid self.
Interesting. This chamber reminds me of a fairy fountain in Zelda,
Yeah.
and I love it.
Yeah.
Because those are my favorite areas in Zelda.
Truly. Admittedly, this is so I'm a member of the Che and Peku Patreon, and they do these amazing maps, and it is technically called a secret Fae fountain, but I was like, I have a different idea for this.
It's
So
fine.
you're exactly right. It's
I love
basically the
that.
goal. Yeah.
Yeah, but all the lily pads and stuff, like, yeah, obviously it's a water chamber. So
Yeah.
but not water, I guess. This weird viscous magical material that's making me mermaid underneath it, but not when I'm not in it. Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, so you do see, so it looks like this is kind of like a raised like dais sort of like situation, and it's almost like this is a bath. This liquid is pouring from this little fountain into it, and there's this golden like tub that you're in, and there's air above it, and if you were to get out, you would be walking down from like the surface, and then there is water below what looks like normal water, and there's like a salty enough smell in the air that you could tell that that's seawater.
All right. Am I alone in this chamber then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm in that bath. I guess I will get to the edge of the bath and try to stand up from it.
Okay. So you go to lift the fins out, and you just watch them sort of, it's almost like a glittery melting. Like the vision of the fins falls away and your feet are revealed and your legs are revealed just as you lift yourself out of the liquid.
Cool. I'm gonna, I guess, walk toward the ocean water. I'm not gonna get in it, but I'll look in it and
Okay.
see if it looks different to me, I guess.
So you walk to the edge there and you're looking down into it, and you can see down below there are little fish swimming around, and there's like plant life down there kind of moving with the current. And you get that same sense of feeling so at home, so at peace almost.
Okay. I guess I'll just sit on these stairs and set my feet in the ocean water then. If I'm at home, I'm probably just gonna hang out.
Yeah. As you put your feet into the water, you see the transformation begin to take place again as there's this sort of like shimmery melt. It's a little bit different when you seem to turn back into like elven form. There's like a goldness to it. And when you enter the water, there's more of that like cerulean blue kind of shimmer as you feel those parts of you kind of like just slide back into that other form.
Is it a lengthy process every time that happens, or is it pretty quick?
Yeah, it's like you touch the surface and it shifts.
I think I would probably dip my feet in and out of the water just to like watch them change back and forth a bunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that is definitely something I'd be doing right now.
Makes perfect sense. I think I would do the exact same thing in this situation. So you're dipping and you're watching as things just shift back and forth, and you get that same like warm, tingly feeling each time. So it is like objectively kind of pleasant too, and it's very interesting visual experience. You kind of like caught up in it a little bit, and there's this joy to it for you.
Hell yeah. Cool. Well, after I watched that a few times, I would probably want to go investigate these little fishies and different life that's hanging out around in this chamber.
Sure, yeah.
I guess.
Dive in.
Yeah.
Feel yourself transform again. It seems to go pretty far down. The water is very clear. There's a variety of fish down here. Some clownfish, some lionfish, some zebrafish. There's a mix. Do you think Bella's pretty familiar with the different types of fish?
Not by name.
Okay.
Necessarily.
They're very brightly colored. They have a lot of different shapes to them. Very beautiful. Very aesthetically pleasing. You hear a voice that seems to come from above you. Bella. Bella, my dear.
I'm gonna look up, I guess. I'm gonna try and find where that voice is coming from.
It sounds like so there's like these stairs down into the water, and there's a little bit of like a partially underwater platform that heads down that you could step on the lily pad, you could walk across this like bridge sort of thing that's partially submerged. Or I guess it's fully submerged, just not very deeply. And it's definitely coming from the area that's like on the other side of the room that seems to have that like waterfall behind it.
Okay. I'll head that way, I guess. The voice, is it a familiar voice? Is it my own voice?
Bella's a smart girl. It feels familiar. She's never heard it before. Or at least not like this doesn't spark a particular memory, but it has a familiarity to it that is palpable. Go ahead and make an intelligence check for me. Just general intelligence.
I rolled a 6.
Okay.
I guess.
It sounds maternal and comforting and particularly familiar, but you just can't place it.
Sure. All right. Well, I will head toward that voice, I guess.
Yeah. Swim back up to the surface. Head pops up. And you see what looks like the same individual who first spoke to you, first told you that you were coming home. But if they were in a more like humanoid bipedal form, the scales and the fins have turned into this sort of like glittery gown that flows down and kind of swirls around them and has a bit of a train. They look a little older than you remember them, like more matronly and less like youthful, but still very beautiful, of course. And they have this long flowing blonde hair that's got little like sea anemones and flowers and stuff kind of dotting throughout it, like sea flower type of shapes, but obviously they're not exactly flowers. She's just smiling at you sweetly.
What should I be doing here? Is there something you'd like me to do?
Not yet. Right now you can just feel comfortable. I'm just glad you're here.
And do you have a name?
What's Bella's mother's name?
Oh God, I haven't named Bella's mother.
That's okay.
Is that what she's gonna give me?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it doesn't, whatever you come up with today does not have to be canonical. So whatever comes to mind.
Well, Cecilia came to mind for some reason.
Ooh,
so let's
pretty. Just
go with Cecilia.
I like that. Yeah, that's a pretty mermaid name anyway.
Yeah. I guess I'm just naming a mermaid.
It's okay if you don't remember. I'm Cecilia. I found you.
You... Okay. You found me?
You've forgotten so much, but you have been away forever, it seems like. You'll remember in time.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Can I... Can I eat anything? Do you have food that I could have?
Of course. Whatever you'd like.
Excellent. What are you doing here in particular? What is here?
Home?
Is there a name for home?
I'll explain. It seems like they've taken much from you. Go ahead and make another wisdom save for me.
With advantage?
With advantage. Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit. Oh, no. All right. I got a 10.
Nice. So she smiles again very sweetly at you, says she's going to explain. And she says, "You're one of Thasa's gifts. You're a child of the sea."
Thassa?
Thassa?
Thassa.
Thassa. Thassa.
Ah, Thassa. Who's that?
She is everything. Make a religion check for me.
Jeez, are they gonna sacrifice me here? Am I about to just... What's happening?
What's happening?
I rolled a 17
Okay.
for religion, I guess.
It's kind of like a very, you think about it for a second. Thassa, that sounds kind of familiar. And you do remember something you probably studied a long time ago or something, like child learning sort of thing. Thassa is a god of the sea. Aquatic creatures tend to worship Thassa. They are they're very neutral to good, very protective of anything within the realm of the water, and are like the creator of like the deep things like krakens and stuff like that. Like a force of change, but not violent change, but also there's like this darkness to these like great creatures that she's associated with.
Okay. So she just said I'm a child of, or a gift of Thassa?
Mm-hmm.
A gift of Thassa. What does that mean?
Very rarely. Once an age, if that, maybe. Thassa gifts us with a Rani.
A Rani?
Mm-hmm.
And what is that?
It is hard to explain. Thassa creates things of great magnitude. Huge creatures of the deep that'll never be seen by any eyes other than her own until she's ready. But she also creates smaller, powerful things. You are like her child, birthed of the sea. I found you wrapped delicately in these feather-like tendrils of a plant, some odd anemone I've never seen before. But we can all feel it when Rani is coming. We search until one is found. It took us a long time to find you, but that was because there were two, and that's never happened before.
Oh, who's the other one?
Your sibling.
Do you know where they are?
They're here.
Where?
with Thassa.
Can I see them?
Oh, of course, that's the plan. You see, normally you would have been with us the entire time and raised knowing that we would follow you and that you would be guided by Thassa. But because you were taken, Thassa wants to make sure that you haven't lost your way. So we have to put some tests before you, but
Ah,
I know that you will pass.
tests. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. Tests. What does that mean? What do I have to do?
Thassa has wanted to make sure that you, as I said, have not lost your way. So you'll be asked to show that you can see the gifts of the sea, that you can move as one with the current, and that you can embrace the change inherent in existence. Which is a bit of a cryptic way of saying that there will just be a few tasks that will put before you to see, and I know that you'll pass them.
Okay, but what happens if I don't pass them and Thassa decides I'm not good enough?
Then we just have to take a little bit more time to make sure that you have found your way back home.
And what does that entail?
Learning,
Okay, so how do we get started on these tests?
of course. So they are out here. Thassa can see all, but everyone wants to be present for your return, of course. So as soon as you step through and she gestures to this, like, it looks like a waterfall from your view. Like the water is moving and almost like splashing down, but there's almost, it's not like quick moving. It's slower than what a waterfall should be. It kind of looks more like a portal in a way. When you step through, you'll be home. This is where we thought you would be most comfortable when you had a moment to recover from the journey, being used to breathing air and getting used to being able to change. And she kind of takes a step back, and you can see the same sort of like shimmery change happen to her that happens to you as she kind of like just like leans back into the water and shimmers back into that sort of like beta fish looking merfolk form.
And that's when she steps into the portal
Yeah,
or in
into
the
that
water?
like waterfall looking thing, the thing behind her. And you can see through it. Like you see her still there. It's almost like you're looking out into the ocean through like a distorted watery image.
Did she pass all the way through it or is she just like kind of hanging out in it?
It looks like what she did was she has completely exited the area that you're in. She's out like floating in the sea. Her hair has moved up and is kind of like gently moving around her with the water. You can see like a fish swim by.
Huh. Um okay. And I can just do this like whenever. Like I could just stay in this chamber here for a little while too if I wanted, right?
You can hear her like voice coming through. It is a little bit like watery, like somebody talking underwater. She's like, "There's no need to rush. You can stay for as long as you like. You're home."
How do I know that this is all real and that you're not just messing with me?
You can feel it, can you not?
That I mean, that's subjective, I think, right?
That's fair. I can understand that it would be difficult to process such a change. They must have known how special you were. That's why they took you.
Who's they?
We never did find out. No one else should even know about the Rani.
So then how did you know where to find me if you're not sure who took me?
You were back in the sea again. We could feel that you were there.
Can I talk to Thassa? Is that if I'm
Of
right?
course. You will.
When?
as soon as she knows that you haven't lost your way too badly, we'll take you there, and you'll be with your sibling and with your mother. Would you like to make an insight check? That's what your face is telling me.
Maybe.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Ooh. I rolled a 14.
Okay. So there's nothing that is controlling your mind right now. So when you have this feeling of like, or I shouldn't say nothing controlling your mind, like you have free use of your faculties. So when you're
Right.
like, you know, I do have a feeling of being home here when she says that, but it's almost like too good. Like it doesn't seem like she's lying to you when you study her body language. The things that she's saying don't sound like a lie based on any of the tells you would look for.
Mhm.
But what you do notice is that feeling of being at home definitely has like a pressure to it. Like that is
Yeah.
something that's kind of being like pushed onto you a bit. And you can feel it drawing you in. You can feel that this does feel like a home. Like you got that sense of the morning breeze as you were diving into the ocean, and you like she had the name of what you remember being your mother, even though like those thoughts are kind of like a little cloudy almost, it seems like, as you're like pondering this. But it's like, this is almost like a thing that is being put onto me.
Also, though, it just occurred to me that she called me Bella, and that's not what my mom would have called me.
Mm-mm.
So I'm gonna go ahead and so if I pass through this portal, where does it take me?
Oh, just out into the sea to meet everyone. It's not a portal like to another dimension. This is just preserving the air inside.
Okay. All
Otherwise,
right.
this cavern would be flooded.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. All right. Well, I would like to go see my sibling, please. Let's go that way.
Okay. So you pop up out, and you can see, as you get up onto the little like submerged bridge, there's like this like liminal state that some of your feet are in, basically, as they're kind of like solid but also like almost like you can see the illusion almost of them floating off into being fins, but because you're using your feet, they're still feet. And as you start to pass through this like watery sort of portal, you can see, just like it did before, all the parts of you shimmer back into like the mermaid form. And as you pass through it, you're in your mermaid form, and you can breathe just fine. And you look out, and it looks like you are in what you would imagine to be the bottom of an ocean where there was like a community. There's these like huge coral like structure almost. And there are just dozens and dozens of these creatures gathered here. Various conversations are going on. Some of them are kind of talking amongst themselves, but some of them are talking, but like watching you and Cecilia as you emerge. There's like what looks like tables, and there's like food lying out. It looks like there's like various like sea floor plants that have been like prepared in different shapes and colors. Hard to say exactly what they are, but it looks like what you would imagine there to be like food ready to eat and things like that. And they're just kind of watching you.
And everything like looks peaceful and normal and chill.
Yeah.
Okay, but now Bella knows that she's being fucked with because she knows that's not her mom, right? And her mom wouldn't have called her Bella. And that's
Mhm.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
So now I don't know what to do with that information. I don't know what to do with that. I don't have my weapons or anything with me either, do I? It's just me as a mermaid.
So when you have that thought, you look down at yourself and you are in like a mermaid form. Because you're already having these thoughts of like, I feel like there's something to this information that's being given to me is like almost what I want to hear. What you would expect your mermaid form to be, like if you were to look back at what little Bella would have imagined herself to be as like a mer creature, merfolk, that's exactly what you look like. And it's very like exactly as you would expect, right? And when you have this thought of like, do I have my weapons on me? You can see almost in your hand like materializing this like dagger made of like this sea foam colored sea glass.
I'm gonna hold this dagger out, just like as if I know how to hold a dagger. Don't look at my real life hands because I don't know how to do that. Bella's gonna hold this dagger out and she's gonna say, so what happens if I just stick this right in my throat and I hold it up to my neck?
Oh, interesting. Okay. There's like, you're underwater and there's this, instead of being in air where there's like silence other than the sounds that are being made, the entire area, right, has this like this presence of this watery sound to it. But you can still talk and everything just fine. The creatures, the people here, all fall silent, except for a few who make like gasps and all look very scared. And Cecilia even like clutches like her metaphorical pearls, you know. And there's still the sounds. When I say it falls silent, there's not like all the ocean sounds stopped, you know, since to it. Those still keep going, but the creatures all stop, looking absolutely terrified. And Cecilia's, why would you? Well, I would try to save you. Why would you do something like that?
I just wanted to see, how you'd react. That's all. I'm feeling a little off, is all. This isn't what I'm used to, you know?
I understand.
So I just I needed to see.
It can be quite overwhelming to learn all of this.
Perfect. Well, I guess I don't need this weapon then, huh? And I guess I'm gonna pretend it's not there again. All right, I'm
Yeah.
gonna let it disappear, I guess.
Yeah. It just kind of like swirls into the water. That must be one of the gifts of Thassa.
Uh, yeah, maybe. Shall we continue?
Of course. Would you like to eat first, or would you like to hurry through the tests?
Well, what do you typically do actually? Like just in your normal day to day, like what do you spend your days doing? Cecilia.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm a bit of a healer. So when anyone gets injured, they come to me, and I I do enjoy playing with the fish. I have a bit of a garden.
Okay. Wow. Cool. Can you teach me how to garden underwater?
Of course. Actually, that's part of one of the trials, so it makes
Oh
sense
god.
that would seem like something that you would want to do. Thassa knows.
Yeah, I'm gonna imagine one of those weird knives again, and I'm just gonna stab my arm.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah.
You're doing it.
Yeah. You imagine a dagger, this like sea glass looking dagger appears in your hand again, and you stab yourself in the arm. And it hurts. And you bleed. Blood's a little bit of a different color. It's like more of like a dark bluish than.
Do I get to roll for a damage?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, roll me a d4.
Did I do it right? So I did 4 piercing damage
Yeah,
to myself.
you sure did. I mean,
guess.
you wanted to hit yourself. It's not like you were going to miss, you know?
I'm not sure what parts of these are, illusion and not, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure what to do here.
That's fair. Well, and you're stabbing yourself. So if you were expecting, like, if you're trying to judge whether or not it hurt, then you would obviously be able to like stop yourself from doing the full 4 points if you wanted. Like, once it pierced flesh and you felt the pain, you could stop stabbing yourself if you wanted. But
Oh,
if
I
you
wouldn't
wanted
do
to,
that.
okay.
I'm fully trying to convince myself that I'm not in a dream. So if I'm hurting myself, I'm not pulling it. Bella's been a test subject before. She's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, all right. I guess I just stabbed myself. What? You're a healer, you say? Can you heal this?
Yeah, so you do this, and she like lets out a little scream, and had immediately started kind of like swimming over to you. So when you ask her to, she's already in the process of putting her hands over the wound on your arm, and she closes her eyes, and it sounds like she's praying to Thassa maybe, or asking for like her help of some kind. And you feel this very cold, like the depths of the ocean sensation around like where she's touching you around the wound. But you can feel, just like any other time you've been healed, you can kind of feel the flesh like knit itself back together. She moves her hands and your arm looks whole again. You heal the damage that you've done.
Perfect. Okay.
Actually, I guess I should roll for that. Let me make sure
Oh,
she doesn't like completely suck at healing you. Okay, yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, you heal
sweet.
before damage. See that cold feeling, is around your arm. You feel your flesh knit back together, and she just looks at you concerned. I can't tell you not to do that again, but I hope that you won't.
Yeah, sorry. You know, you mentioned, right, that I was stolen as a kid. There's been some weird stuff in my life. Thassa would understand. It's fine.
I'm sure she would. And I can't imagine how confusing everything must be, so
You certainly can't.
shall we garden?
Yeah, sure. Let's garden. I want to see what an underwater garden looks like. That sounds lovely.
So she takes you kind of like, or leads you rather, I should say. It's interesting being in like a 3-dimensional setting. You don't have to like walk through the crowd. You can just swim over them. So she just starts kind of like flitting past them. It looks like this is, like I said, like a massive coral structure that they've kind of like made their home in. But it's like this particular area doesn't look like there's a bunch of like residential houses or dwellings of any kind. But she kind of swims a bit past that, and you can see like look like common areas you would see. Like, there's not like a bench because people here swim, but there's definitely like an area where the some of the people that have followed have found like a soft area where there's a bunch of like mossy looking stuff, and have kind of like settled themselves into it. Like, this is where they're going to sit down to like watch you, like where you would imagine like a seating area to be and stuff like that. So that looks like there's this like open space, but it's very ordered. The plants here are, so it's not necessarily clear like, oh, here's a fence and here's a little garden, but there starts being very much like an order to the chaos of the ocean floor. And you can see a variety of like cruciferous looking, like crunchy almost looking plants that have like spiky bits but not like thorns. They just like, they obviously are like sturdy and hold their shape, and as the water moves they're not like flowing with it. And then there's some like softer looking planty things. There's a variety of colors, a lot of green. Some are more of like a deep purple though, and there's even one plant that almost looks like a potato and is just like aquamarine bright blue.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's just like nestled into like the dirt, and there's like a little, what you would imagine like little flower that would be on top of like a potato, just kind of like in the water, like drifting kind of thing.
What do you call this interesting, lovely blue potato?
Blue potato. I love that. Well, um, I actually don't know if it has a name. We just eat it. Hasn't occurred to me to name it.
Oh, do you eat it right out of the ground, or do you prepare it any certain way?
There are a couple of different ways. Some are eaten fresh, and you can also treat it with, and she starts to explain what you would compare to like seasoning. Like they, instead of having like the typical like salt and basil and stuff like that,
Sure.
they talk about adding like bits of other plants, and they have access to some like fresh non-salty water, and sometimes they'll like soak different things and like that to get a different flavor to it. So like
Huh.
she goes into like a long explanation about stuff like that as she's showing you the different plants.
I love that.
Mhm.
I clearly have very much to learn. So I guess I shouldn't actually no, I would like to jump right into the tests. Can we go test now, I guess?
Yeah, we're starting here actually.
Okay, perfect. What do I got to do?
Some of the things here are poisonous and some of them aren't. And Thassa believes that if you haven't lost your way too much, you'll be able to point the poisonous ones out to us. Those aren't meant to
Okay.
be eaten fresh. There must much preparation that goes into those before they can be consumed.
Oh, okay. So I should just start pointing at plants and letting you know whether or not I can eat them?
You could do that, or you can simply go and look for the ones that are poisonous.
I'm going to try to do that.
Okay. And she looks like she's just kind of gonna float there and like watch unless you call her to like follow you.
Cool. I guess I'm gonna look at like closely at all these plants and try to point out which ones are poisonous.
Okay. So, you as Bella have proficiency in both herbalism and poison making.
That is true, aren't I?
Yeah.
I do have that, don't I?
So,
Nice.
yeah. One of the things that you have learned through like poison making and herbalism is like sometimes you need to know what a specific plant does because you are hoping to make something specific. But there are also commonalities between plants that are helpful and plants that are harmful, or plants that have different properties. And so you think with the knowledge that you have that you probably would hopefully think that your knowledge about how to identify some things that are likely poisonous would carry over to plant life that's under the ground, under the
Sure.
sea, I guess, as well. So I want you to we're going to make 2 checks. We're going to do perception first, and then we'll do
For perception, I rolled a 10.
nice. What we'll do is we'll do intelligence, but with proficiency. So basically, just roll an intelligence save because that's the same number, but it's not a save actually. It's you rolling like to apply the knowledge that you have of poisons with your proficiency for poison making.
Okay. I rolled a 15
Okay,
to apply the knowledge.
15 applied knowledge roll. So it takes a little while. You kind of swim about. You're looking at the different plants, and you do find overall, based on the knowledge that you have, that there seems to be some law to plant life that even applies to under the sea. Not sponsored. And just the textures on plants that tend to have poisonous properties, like they get like veiny a lot and they have like darker colors to them, and you identify 3 different plants. One of them actually looks like one of those like cruciferous vegetable looking plants, very like stiff and rigid, but it is like a deep like purplish black color. And then there are a couple of other plants. They're not in all the same area either, which is interesting. But you single out 3 of them amongst what are probably like 20 different crops or so. That you're like, if my knowledge follows, these would be the ones that I would guess would be poisonous.
All right. Perfect. So I present that information to Cecilia.
Okay, so you take her around and point them out. I knew you would do just fine. Very good.
Wonderful. All right, what's the next task?
All right. So this one, I think you'll find a bit less academic and a bit more exhilarating, most likely. But it's a bit of, well, I'll just show you. And she swims off, and it's like the crowd is following you. Like you just have an entourage of like 40 or more people, just kind of like they're keeping it like a distance, but definitely like reacting. You know, when you're successful, there's like an audible like celebration. And when you stabbed yourself, there was the like sort of thing. And she takes you down further, like there's like a decline to the floor here, and takes you down to this area that looks like some like tunnels almost. And you can feel, as you pass by one, you can feel like pressurized, like water almost like shooting out of it. But since you're in the water, it's just that you like feel like a strong current to it, right? And she leads you down below a few, or like past a few that have this like expulsion to it. And you can feel as you get closer, like another one of these like entrances has like a pull to it. Like this one is intaking water that's being sent somewhere else. So, it's not possible for one who isn't, well, of the sea, one with the sea, to navigate these tunnels safely, because the currents can be very strong and they're a little dangerous in there. So you'll enter here, and you'll need to follow the current safely and make sure you don't hurt yourself. She kind of like glances down at your arm, and emerge through the correct tunnel.
Okay. All right. So I just gotta navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bella's fully convinced at this point that she's dead or dying. And this is just the weird way that her subconscious is processing her trauma. And like, I'm applying my life knowledge now. Like,
Yeah.
yep, I know a lot about plants. Okay, yep, I can swim good, probably because I was really dexterous in my life. Like, it's fine.
It's fine. I'm dying, and this
I'm
is how I get
dead.
into the afterlife, I guess. It's whatever.
Fine.
I was drowned by a sea witch.
Yep. So she's like, whatever, let's do it. Let's get through it.
All right. And the sort of like the less hesitancy you have, the more like pleased she looks. Like she's glad to see that you're like accepting this, like, oh good. She believes us now.
I'm still gonna do it. It's fine. Nope. Cool. So I'm looking through the tunnels there. Does it look like I'm not a proficient. I'm learning my sea legs. Are there like tunnels that I can practice in? Like, is there open water with currents that I can learn how to, just to ensure that I know how to move the right way before I just dive right into the place that is dangerous?
I don't know if there's any currents that would be quite this strong around here, but moving away from the coral that blocks a bit of the natural movement of the water. So if you were to swim out and above that, then you'd get a bit more of a movement to the place. Sure. Maybe that would be best for you to kind of get an idea of what it feels like.
Okay, then I'm gonna do that. Bella's gonna swim away, I guess,
Okay.
from everybody. Does everybody follow me as I swim away from the coral?
She actually is like, do you want to try that alone, or do you want us to go with you? Or just
Uh,
me?
I could do this one alone, I think.
Okay.
And that's it. They just let her go to swim around on her own. God damn it. I don't. Okay. Well, Bella's gonna practice swimming at the bottom of the ocean.
Okay. So the it's like brightly colored. The section that you were in had very much like a pink tone to it. But as you're kind of passing the different areas as you're making your way out to it, you can like see beyond like the edge of it. It's like if you were in a city and there were tall buildings, but you could still see the sky. It's like that.
Mhm.
There's like blues and greens and pinks and purples, and you pass all of this coral. And as soon as you kind of like breach the top of it, you can feel there's definitely more like movement to the water here. Beyond this, you now see ocean as far as the eye can see in every direction. And there's other structures to the floor, but this seems to be like just a huge coral structure that is kind of like not enclosed but very like protected. And there's like dark shapes off in the distance, really far away. It's not like they just let you like swim out into like super dangerous area.
Right.
But yeah, just ocean floor and water as far as the eye
And
can see.
can I see the sun at the top then? Can I see the Oh. Can I swim up to try to find the sun?
Yeah. So you just like start heading up and you can feel like currents pulling you different directions as you swim. And you swim and you swim and you swim and you swim. How long do you think you'll go?
I'd probably only go for like I'd probably count to like 30,
Okay.
swimming as quickly as I could up. And
Okay.
if I still don't get anything, then again, I'm still convinced that I'm dying, and I guess I better just go back to that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I guess there's no getting out of this
Yeah.
one. I guess this is it. So,
Yeah. Well, bottom of the ocean, pretty far from the surface. So yeah, you swim and like you swim, it's fast. You feel like you're moving quickly. You feel like you can feel the pressure of the different currents and you even like get a pretty good idea of how like you might be able to move through them like aquadynamically. What are water dynamically? What's aerodynamic but for water?
I think you were right. Aquadynamic sounds
Aquadynamically?
good.
Yeah,
I
we'll
don't
go
know
with
if it's
that.
a
We'll
real
go with
word,
that.
but I like it.
It makes
It's a
sense
word
though.
now.
It is, yes. I've invented this, like
Mhm.
eyeballs.
All
So
language
yeah,
is made up,
it
so
is
you get to
true.
make this word now.
Absolutely. Aquadynamic. So like you get the education you were looking for as you do this. And as you move, you start to see like more of the floor and there's more structures to it. It doesn't look like this is like an island in the middle of nothing, right? But it
Mhm.
does look like this is a particularly like strong kind of sturdy protective area that they have
Mhm.
chosen, amongst the whatever might be at the bottom of the ocean. So yeah, so you make your way up. You feel like you get the education you're looking for. You make your way back down. Okay.
Yep. Go back down. I guess I'm gonna just see how I do in these weird, dangerous tunnels and
Okay.
hope that they don't kill me, I guess.
Right. So looking through the entrance, it looks like what she's probably talking about, at least as far as you can tell, is that there's it's like rough around the edges. Like the water will have like smoothed things a bit over time, but there's like hard coral or like barnacle-y looking things. And just like you'll have to really
Harsh obstacles to navigate.
exactly. You'll have to really
Okay.
like move with the water and you can't just like if you crash against the side of the wall, there's probably something there that's going to hurt more than just the impact basically.
Sure.
So,
All right. Well, no time like the present.
all right. Dive in.
She's diving on in.
Okay. So, when you enter, everyone is still around you and they're kind of like watching that and you hear her call after you, "We'll be there at the end." And you can just feel the like force of the current. You can still move about just fine, but you're moving much more quickly than you would be able to move on your own as you kind of get like sucked into this. So what I want you to do, we'll go ahead and we're going to make 3 different acrobatics checks.
All right. The first acrobatics check is a 23.
Wonderful.
Let's see. The second acrobatics check is a 14. And then the third one is another 14.
Okay, perfect. So you start like careening, soaring through the water, whatever that would be, through these tunnels. And as you're moving, you get the same sense as you're moving through these tunnels. The obstacles really are more about moving with the water and not ending up like hitting the edge, like there's sharp edges and things like that. There is one point where there's like a split, and this is pretty early on, and you can feel the pull to the left. So you follow that. And it's hard to say whether, like, how that impacted the path. This could be the easier one, this could be the harder one, but it was where you felt like the water was pulling you the most strongly. And that was the only like real crossroads. It seemed like the other times where something might split, you kind of come out in like the same area and it was just like two different ways to get there. There's one instance where as you're moving through, there's like an unexpected, just like, and this doesn't look like naturally occurring. This looks like maybe something like partially collapsed or there was pressure, there was like an impact and it partially like dented one of these areas. And so you're like rounding this corner and you have to swiftly like adjust your body to not just smack into a wall. And you knew that that would hurt because you're going quite quickly, but you managed to avoid all of these obstacles and you come just like barreling out of the other end of this like tunnel to like a similar scene where you like come like flying out and you see like the tunnels open up for the first time in what feels like 10 solid minutes of just like dodging these obstacles. And there's the seafloor and the if you look around really quickly, it seems like you're probably on one of the other sides of this like coral structure. And Cecilia is there with like clasped hands looking expectantly, and there's people like all kind of like gathered in the distance around, like watching hopefully. And as they see you emerge, there's like audible like cheering, and there's some people like hugging each other, like they're really celebrating this. And she's again,
Man, who's going to tell them they have the wrong person? I can't do that. So
you're like, oh God, imposter gods, what road to El Dorado bullshit is going on right now?
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew that there was no way that they could really take you away from us.
Yep, I guess not. What's next?
The last one is going to be the most interesting. I think you'll find it the most interesting too, but also I'm interested to see how you approach it.
Okay.
Thassa believes that change is inherent in nature and that the world should always be changing, but not drastically. Just always in a state of growth and metamorphosis. And part of the plan is that it's gradual. So she starts explaining all of these things as she's like leading you kind of like back into the structure. And there is this region. It looks like extra decorated, like if you were to imagine what like a courtyard would be in a place like this. Like there's like manicured plants that have been purposely put in places, like beautiful anemones that match each other in rows and stuff like that. And there is this, it looks like a table or almost like even like an altar. And there's maybe a little tiny bit of like fear for a moment for Bella as this like stone seafloor rock structure that exists. She leads you over to it, and everyone kind of like they form almost like a big, like amorphous, non-ordered circle and kind of swim up to look down. And she runs her fingers along the edges of the tops of this table, and it begins to glow from underneath with this like sapphire blue, like illumination. It's not super bright, but enough to be very noticeable. And you see what just anyone who has been, on the land and has ever looked at a map looks like vaguely the land masses of the world, kind of like laid out in map form.
Okay.
One of Thasa's constant goals, I guess, or activities is that she's always changing the shores, always changing the land a bit, opening up to the sea, closing areas off to the sea. But she does it slowly and gradually, and it's not noticed until a long time has passed. And she knows that as her daughter, you would be able to make changes that we wouldn't notice.
Okay. Should I touch this table?
So she reaches in, and you can see, like, if her hand starts to head towards the edge of one of like the land masses, where her hand like hovers over it, the shape changes as if she were pushing it, like she's modeling clay or something like that.
Oh.
So she can kind of like hover over an area, or like it's like touching almost. It's like not hovering over far away, but like barely to the point of almost touching. It kind of like moves for her. So she puts it back where it goes, and she moves it again and looks at you and puts it back where it goes. She says, "So we're simply going to watch. And if you can make changes that we can't determine, then she'll believe that all is well."
All right. Well, I mimic the movements that I watched her do.
Okay. Now you can do this however you'd want to. If you're wanting to just like test it, the goal is for them to not be able to see what you're changing. So I was thinking sleight of hand. So you can kind of like be working on different areas and like try to actually change places that they don't notice is kind of the goal there.
Right. Then I'll do that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do a sleight of hand check to see if I can do changes.
But if what you want to
can't see.
do is just push it to watch it move first, you can do that to test it out. She's not like, no, you have to do it this way or anything like that.
Yeah. So first, Bella would definitely want to see like if she moves her hand over the table, is she going to feel each intricate little motion as she's interacting with it? Like how
Okay. Yeah. I was like, I want to make sure that I have explained this properly where you know like what like has been asked or whatever. So yes, you if you start like just like working with it, she's just allowing you to kind of play with it. What happens when you put your hands like over it and like close to it within like an inch or two of like the top, you kind of feel like how do I explain this? Have you ever touched like an old tube TV and felt the like static on the screen? It's like that. There's like this palpable feeling to it, and the closer you get, the more you can feel like that your movements will impact things because that tingly like staticky feeling increases.
Sure.
So if you test it out and you kind of like push and pull and bit, you can move stuff, and that's kind of like the feeling that you get to it.
Okay. So I'll get acclimated to that feeling.
Okay.
And then Bella will try to do something that they can't see once she's familiarized herself.
Okay. Let us know when you're ready.
Here goes nothing. I'm gonna roll.
Yeah. So let's do 3 sleight of hand checks.
3 of them. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna do them all at once this time. Ooh, okay.
Okay.
Interesting. So I rolled a 25 and a 17 and then a critical failure. That equaled a 10 because I've got ridiculous bonuses to my sleight of hand, but still a critical failure.
That rogue life, though.
Yeah.
So there's, like I said, 40 or more people plus Cecilia. And she is kind of like, she's drifted her way back so that she's not like right over your shoulder. You know, the goal is for them to be watching like from afar. And you are doing your best to mimic in some places and actually move in others and make little changes to like the coastline, basically. And whenever you kind of like decide you're finished, you stop and you look back, and they've all been watching, and you can see some of them like talking amongst themselves and like pointing at different areas. And like there are like three that are arguing over like one thing. Like one's convinced that you did something, and you like kind of like laugh to yourself because that was like the trick or whatever. And the other two are like, no, I think it was over there. And you can hear like these conversations going on. And Cecilia is watching, and she looks like she's definitely studying the map very closely. Not like she's trying to like, oh, everything's just fine, like she's looking intently. Well, I can't tell exactly what's changed. Has anyone been able to tell? And she starts like talking to them, and you're watching as she's kind of going around, and there are a couple of people who like point out things that like you like made a change to, but maybe not like too much of one, or like was near an area that you changed. But even the last one where somebody was convinced that they saw something, they didn't quite see exactly what you had done. And so she herself doesn't necessarily know either. So you can see like they have all these conversations, and she stops, and there's like a moment where she like looks out into like the blue basically and is like, can she come home now? I think she passed. And she closes her eyes, and there's this like what a wave would be underwater. Like there's just this like gentle rolling push, and everyone kind of like drifts slightly towards the like structure a bit, and she smiles. Wonderful. It's time.
Okay. Time.
It's time. She starts swimming. Do you follow?
Yes.
Okay. So she leads you back into like a more central area. Like what you would imagine, just like you've seen one side and you've seen another side, and you know that they're like maybe not exact opposites, but they are, you've gotten a pretty good idea of where like the center of this would be. And she seems to be leading you pretty much to like the very central portion of the structure. And if you'll look at the map, there's almost like what you would think of as like arches made of coral that she goes into and like beckons you to follow. And you see the others like filtering in at a distance, maybe 20 or so feet behind you into this. And it opens up into this area where it seems like there is some kind of like an abyss down there below. And this is like teeming with marine life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just like this bridge, although that seems a bit superficial since it's underwater, that leads up to this structure with a set of double doors at the top.
All right. Is she going toward those doors, or is she just standing there staring at me?
She's kind of like moved out over this like bridge sort of structure, probably like 10 feet or so, and stops and waits for you to enter in. She says, "They're in there. We're not allowed in."
Oh, why not?
Because we are not Thassa's children.
How does she keep people from entering?
Well, we'll die if we go in.
And how do we know I won't die if I go in?
No Rani has ever died when entering Thassa's.
What
Well,
language
domain, I
is
suppose.
that, by the way? Rani? What is that? Where does that originate from?
Thassa taught us the word. It just means like a chosen guide. She'll teach you both everything you need to know to lead.
Okay. Sounds great. I'm gonna go toward these doors, I guess.
Okay. She starts swimming over that way. I want you to make one more wisdom save.
Wisdom save. There we go. I rolled a 3.
Love it. So she's kind of like swimming alongside of you and has been quiet for a moment. And she goes, "Your sister. I couldn't remember before, but now I remember it's your sister that's in there."
Mm-hmm.
And she keeps swimming.
Yeah. Do you happen to remember her name?
We have not been told her name. I only knew what
Oh,
to call you because I heard your friends say that.
not Thassa?
Thas has not told us your name. I believe the Rani choose their own names.
Oh. Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay. Well,
Okay. So you two swim together up to this. It's almost like, interestingly, there's like this raised structure that you would imagine to be the door, but the double doors are actually like set into the ground. But she is also like the goddess, god of the sea and the deep things and stuff like that. So,
right.
not necessarily too far out of the ordinary. And she swims like up next to those with you and just kind of stops and says, "I wish I could go with you, but I've gone as far as I can and I'll watch you and just wait for your return.
And what will you do in the meantime?
Live."
Okay. Great. Bella's gonna, I guess, look at the doors on the floor on the ground.
Okay.
Other than they being doors on the floor, like on the ground of the ocean, that's weird to her.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that's like particularly off about them?
Go ahead and make a perception check.
I got a 12.
Okay. So you take a moment to study them, and you've noticed now that you've looked at the door, there's like a motif that has run throughout any type of like structural art or anything like that you've seen, and it looks like a wave that's lined in stars. Like as if it were a constellation, but like on the ground, and it's very like sparkly looking. And the doors have these big designs on them that are like that. And you get the feeling that this reminds you of Thassa, and whether that's something that you studied and saw, and that's how you knew what Thassa was, and you remember like a holy symbol, or whether this is something that just feels right. It's hard to say. But you're looking at them, and it has like the iconography that you've kind of seen around the place, and it's like intricate. It looks like there's like not like precious metals here, but almost like sea glass as like decorations, like in the doors, just making it look very beautiful and ornate.
All right. Are the doors locked? I guess I'll try the doors.
Yeah, they just look like they have like inset handles where you would just like reach your hands in and be able to like lift them up.
I'm gonna listen into the doors.
Is something wrong?
Uh, I mean, no. I had a whole life, right? And I was conditioned to do certain things at doors, okay? So I need a moment before I open and go through the door.
Of course.
um, do I hear anything in these doors?
Make another perception check.
I got a 19.
You hear what could probably be best described as like whale song, but deeper.
Okay. I open these doors.
Okay. Fling the doors open, and you see like a deep darkness that doesn't feel like, you stare off into the dark, and normally like there's a little bit of a sense of dread, like what's the unknown in there, but you see this deep darkness, and it's almost like it's like calling to you and is comforting. Like this is the depths of the sea. This is where she might reside, where they would be housed, where my family must be.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm going through these doors.
Okay. So you start to swim in and you can kind of like hear the like cheers of people behind you and like general like celebratory sounds. And then you start to feel almost like you're struggling to get further in. And there's this sense of almost being like netted. Like there's something like holding you back, and you can feel like straps or something. Like you look down and you don't see anything on yourself, but you can like feel the pressure of it, and the vision in front of you almost like flickers out as if it like glitched or something, and you're in like a much brighter place for just a moment, so bright that it takes your eyes a second to adjust, but you have like the smell of like the air almost in your lungs again before it's replaced by the vision that you had seen before, and you hear like a screech behind you.
Cool.
And that's where we're gonna end.
No. Ah!